What is going on, Snooker fans, and welcome to our first 2026 video. It does not feel at all like a year since I made a preview of the Masters last time, but we are back here again for the second biggest tournament on our calendar as Ali Pali prepares to host this event for the 15th time. Again, due to work commitments, it means I'm missing out on watching this event live, which is something I desperately do want to rectify next year, because it is a really special venue to attend if you are able to. The draw, as you would expect, is jam-packed with a lot of the top boys aiming to get their new year off to the perfect possible start. As always, in this video, I will be taking you through the entire first round draw, briefly analysing the key stats in our first round matchups, and predicting who I think will make it through. And we do start right at the top of the draw. Kick-starting our tournament on Sunday afternoon is Shaun Murphy, looking to defend the title he won so impressively last year. And he's up against Yize, who is the first of two Masters debutants in the draw this year. Both men are tournament winners this season, of course, with Murphy's win coming at the British Open, whilst Wu got his maiden title at the International Championship. No match at the Masters is ever a formality, but you would make the defending champion favourite here by virtue of his much greater experience. The pair have only met once before, which was earlier this season actually, which Shaun won in a deciding frame. One thing about the opening match that kicks off this tournament is that it almost always goes down to the wire. And I was going through the record books of this tournament actually, and since the tournament moved to Alexandra Palace back in 2012, the opening match of the tournament has gone to a decider on 7 occasions, and finished 6-4 on a further 4 occasions. So keeping that statistic in mind, I'll go with Murphy to come through a 6-4 winner. Next up, we have the player of the season and UK champion Mark Selby, kick-starting a bid for a 4th Masters title, and he's up against China's 2-time ranking event winner Xiao Guodong. Unfortunately for Mark, he was the man I tipped to win this tournament back at the very start of the season, so that does probably mean he will go on to lose first round here. He is in irresistible form though, and the manner in which he won the Champion of Champions and the UK title will make him a very strong contender for pundits and fans next week. But as I mentioned in my season preview, he has not got to a semi-final here since last winning the title back in 2014. So even though he should be full of confidence, there might still be some pressure on him to have a deeper run here. And in Zhao Guodong, we have our second Masters debutant, which is nothing more than he deserves for the level of form he has found over the past season and a half. He was really unlucky to miss out last year, even more so when it was Robertson who got the nod over him to replace O'Sullivan, and he has been on the cusp of the top 16 before, so this is a long-awaited day for him. Selby boasts a 11-5 lead in their head-to-head. However, a lot of those wins came before Zhao's sudden upturn in form. And for some reason, I do have a feeling Zhao could get a result here. There is no such thing as a shock when it comes to this tournament, but I do think snooker has a funny ability to throw out surprises when you don't expect them. On form, most will expect Selby to come through and possibly go on to win the title, but his poor Masters form might just continue, and I have Xiao to win in a deciding frame. Two massive heavyweights collide here in what is probably the standout tie of the entire opening round. The record 8-time Masters champion O'Sullivan looks guaranteed to be playing this year after he did withdraw on the eve of the tournament 12 months ago, and you can expect a pretty partisan London crowd to get behind him if he does attend. As has always been sort of alluded to this season, Ronnie does seem to be playing pretty well, not that badly at all this season, but he's just getting found out against players who have greater match sharpness than him. The good news for O'Sullivan in that respect is that Robertson may be slightly out of touch here, having not played competitively since his loss to Trump at the UK semi-finals, which was some 5 weeks ago now, although he is getting some match practice in at the Championship League this week. Neither player needs any introduction, so we'll just go straight in and look at their head-to-head. Now, Ronnie may lead 20 wins to 14 in that regard. However, if we look at their meetings since 2021, so the last 5 years or so, Neil leads 5-2, and it does feel like he has Ronnie's number more often than not these days. They also have played each other at this tournament 4 times before, and both have 2 wins apiece. And after an Ashes humiliation in the cricket, England could really do without another loss to an Australian, but I will stick with my boy to come through 6-4. Kyren Wilson will be hoping to put to bed a disappointing end to 2025 as he seeks a first career Masters title, 12 months on from losing to Murphy in last year's final. And he faces Jiahui, who is back here after making his debut last year, and is also another man who could really do with some confidence after we've not really seen an awful lot of him so far this season. Now, there were concerning signs for Kyren at his UK Championship defeat last month. Not only is he having cue troubles, but he admitted that he was close to completely breaking down during his opening round loss to Elliot Slesser. So you'd have to hope that he's been able to sort of have a mental reset over the Christmas and New Year period. Kyren does have a healthy 7-2 advantage in the head-to-head, but Xiao will want to put up more of a fight than he done on his debut here last year when he went down a 6-2 defeat at the hands of Mark Allen. Confidence might not be particularly high for either player here, but I'm having Wilson to come through as a 6-3 winner. Monday afternoon's matchup between Mark Allen and Mark Williams also has the potential to be very tasty indeed. I do stand by the comment I made that we've not seen the best of Mark Allen at all yet this season, but the man has still managed to win a title and reach 4 further semi-finals, which has him sitting 9th on the one-year list, which perhaps further underlines that even though he has changed his style completely from attacking break builder to a more methodical all-rounder, that change is still working very well for him. With Mark Williams, it's simply a question of which version of the Welshman will we see in London next week. Will it be the vintage levels of performance which could see him go all the way, or the version of him which looks like he hasn't picked up a cue for a few months? That question is almost impossible to answer because it's impossible to know which tournament he will come alive for. Allen does lead 14-9 in the head-to-head, but Williams has won their last 2 meetings, both of which have come within the last 18 months. This will, however, be the first time that these 2 former Masters champions have ever met at this tournament. The unpredictability of Mark Williams makes this really difficult, but I am going to go with the slightly safer option here and have Allen to win 6-3. We've had 13 different tournament winners this season, so it might be slightly surprising to see that neither of these players feature on that winners list yet. Higgins got close at the International Championship, losing in the final to Yize, and in general it has been a reasonably consistent season so far for the Wizards, and it did take a good performance from Shaun Murphy to curtail his UK Championship campaign early last month. Barry Hawkins is also having a fairly solid season, but he is yet to reach a semi-final of any kind so far. Of course, the question for the Hawk, as always when it comes to these tournaments, is this the time when he finally lands a Triple Crown title? The Masters is the only one of the 3 which he has lost in multiple finals back in 2016 and 2022, so could arguably be seen as his best hope for achieving this. The head-to-head between them is extremely close, Higgins leading 12-11 in that regard, and this will be another first meeting between the pair at the Masters. Higgins hasn't won a match here since 2022 though, and I can see that record extending as I have Hawkins to win in a deciding frame. And then finally, the final match of the draw is guaranteed to provide us with one small record here, as neither Xintong or Gary Wilson have ever won a match at this tournament in the 3 matches that they have played here overall. The world champion lost 6-2 on his debut 4 years ago, but comes back here as a much more revered player. Zhao was picking up form at the back end of 2025, including a win out in Saudi Arabia. However, it was a disappointing performance in York which saw him lose early in the tournament, going out at the last 16 stage. The Masters is an event for a reigning world champion to sort of flex their muscles a bit though, and I am sure Stephen Hendry in particular will be expecting him to put on a show. Gary Wilson is back for a 3rd stint at this tournament, helped massively by runs to the final and a semi-final in events out in China earlier this season to get himself back into the top 16. I talked in my UK Championship preview about how he always looks better to me when he is the underdog, and he probably comes into this match with the odds against him. Gary does also lead the head-to-head 4-3 between the pair, but Zhao has won their last 3 meetings, and you need to go all the way back to 2020 to find Wilson's last win. It's not the easiest match to call this, but I have a feeling that the world champion might just put in a look at me type of performance and will come through a 6-2 winner. And that's it, that concludes my predicted quarterfinal lineup for this year's Masters. Hopefully we get quite a few close tense matches this year, because you can sometimes get it where one top player just completely dominates the other, and I do seem to remember there being a distinct lack of deciding frames last year, so I'm hoping for different this time around. If I was to predict my winner, I'll have Mark Allen beating Shaun Murphy in the final, but pretty much every potential scenario is very likely when it comes to a tournament like this, which makes it so difficult to predict. Let me know in the comments any predictions you might have, and I'll be back in a week's time to find out who this year's new master is.